Hello everyone, XV here from youtube.com/XVRogueGaming, back with another guide for Dotacinema. This week's guide is all about the middle lane and is designed for introductory to intermediate learning. The advanced version will appear on my channel Monday. Note that in this simplified version, a lot of content is condensed, and some information between the two versions will even be direct contradictions, as these guides are designed with a different audience in mind. In modern Dota, the middle lane is almost always soloed. Therefore, the perfect hero for this lane is a ranged mid-game nuker or carry that has a strong lane presence, such as Queen of Pain, Storm Spirit, or Shadow Fiend. The middle lane is the only one where the bottle is truly viable, but that doesn't make it an ideal starting item. Regardless of lane, it's imperative that you begin the game with a good mix of stats and regen. While the bottle will cover the regen portion, it doesn't do anything for stats. Furthermore, the bottle's primary value as a regen item is that it restores mana as well as hit points, while also being refillable. Typically, spells and abilities at level 1 are not worth their cost, and most players will wait until level 3 before beginning to harass or nuke with them to get more value from their mana. Starting with a bottle will encourage you to cast your spells early in order to create a mana deficit so that you validate the bottle's purchase. By the time the second wave of creep hit the lane, you'll be out of mana and ready to use your bottle. This is an example of misplaced value, and the same actions can be done so much better. There is no rule that forces you to spend all of your starting gold, and a bottle does you no good until you have that deficit of both mana and hit points. So, instead, the much better starting build is 1 Tango and 3 Iron Branches at the cost of 249 gold, leaving you with 354 gold left, assuming you didn't random your hero. This provides you with a solid core to begin with. It makes you more formidable when moving in to spend your mana early, and also gives you a form of regeneration that is not interrupted by damage, unlike the bottle, allowing for special tactics as described in the advanced version. Also, a Tango charge can be stacked with bottle regeneration for more rapid healing later. Next, we perform the same actions, spending our mana early. Nuking down the first creep wave yields an average of 177 gold, assuming you last hit all 4. Including the gold you get over time, this means that when the second creep wave arrives, you'll be 1 CS short of your bottle, essentially meaning that even with good and not perfect CS, by the end of the second wave, you'll have sufficient gold for your bottle, the same time you would have previously been using it. Remember that 6.78 only reduces a courier's speed of carrying an empty bottle. Since bottles start full, it will come towards you at normal speeds. Furthermore, at the 1 minute mark, no one else will be using the courier, and you're middle, so it's the shortest path for the courier to travel. Overall, this is a sturdier starting build with better survivability and damage output. The middle lane's terrain design leaves both Tier 1 towers in close proximity, less than 30% of the distance from one another than the side lane. This means that you'll spend the majority of your time under the shadow of your own or the enemy tower. This added danger is made worse due to the river. The high ground mechanic is one rarely discussed, because it is not normally a factor, but the truth is it has a dramatic impact. Fighting from the low ground imposes a 25% chance to miss a target on a higher elevation. Missing a quarter of your otherwise successful last hits is obviously not viable. To avoid it, you can move to the enemy's high ground to take lateral shots, but this leaves you vulnerable and can be cut off, especially via ganks from the side lanes. The better alternative is to really focus on denying your own creep and controlling the wave such that it always fights within range of your high ground so that you can perpetually strike down. Consider damaging friendly creep the moment they're below half-life. Just ensure you don't line up easy last hits for your opponent in lane by auto-attacking predictably. In fact, this lane control starts at the very beginning of the game via creep blocking. Creep blocking is the process of impeding your creep wave while they attempt to navigate to lane. To do so, position your hero in front of the lead creep and walk perpendicular to their path. It's best not to use the stop or hold position command, as this will encourage the creep to move around you. Instead, get in their way and they'll arrive in lane much later than usual. Ideally, You want to have the first point of conflict occur on your own high ground, but at worst, it should be in the center of the river if both you and your opponent have blocked effectively. The worst case is for you to fail and end up with the first fight in the enemy territory under the tower at level 1. As middle, you won't be buying wards, but you certainly need them. Dual purpose wards such as here, 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 or here will monitor their respective areas and be useful for your allies in the side lanes for their unique reasons, but as far as you're concerned, their primary purpose is rune vision. There are other middle-centric or middle-specific wards, but I've reserved those for the advanced version due to time constraints. On the 0-0 and every 2 minutes afterward, a rune will spawn in one of the 2 locations in River, provided there isn't already a rune at either location. Runes can spawn in the same location twice, but the same rune will not spawn twice in a row. Rune control is imperative to winning your lane, whether you have a bottle or not, and can never be overlooked or understated. As runes can be stored in a bottle, they receive a force multiplier by being used in conjunction with one, saving your powerful ganking aid for when you need it most. Furthermore, after consuming the rune, your bottle will be refilled regardless of how many charges it possessed before taking the rune. This allows you to use your spells with impunity, trade hits even unfavorably, and will rapidly force your opponent out of lane or waste their gold on regeneration items they would have otherwise preferred not to have purchased. Before 6.78, failing to control the rune could be compensated for with sending your empty bottle back to the fountain on the courier, but as mentioned previously, as of the patch, the courier is slowed 30% per empty bottle it's carrying, so it's no longer viable. Note that if you're losing runes to your opponent, it's worth leaving lane early and choosing a spawn point to be ready at on the 2-minute mark. This is a gamble, but it's better than a sure loss. It's worth mentioning that the Radiant have a far easier time getting to the top rune with their extended high ground advantage. Conversely, Dire have an easier time with the bottom rune for the same reason. As such, depending on which team I'm on, I'll favor the safer position if I'm hedging bets for a rune spawn. Runes can also be destroyed by any attack, so if you feel like you're losing a race to one, denying your opponent is only an A-click away. Due to soloing, the middle lane provides flat-out more experience per minute than shared side lanes. Due to its terrain, it's also far easier to remain in experience range at all times, leading it to provide typically more experience per minute than even soloed side lanes. In fact, the only time you're out of lane should be when you're claiming a rune. This is where rune swaying comes in, a tactic that you have to master if you expect to solo mid with any success. In order to recuperate the loss of experience from leaving lane to collect a rune, and simultaneously put your level advantage to good use, as a good middle player, you will use the rune to direct your wrath, ganking the lane closest to you after collecting the rune. Be sure to in some way notify your allies so that they can assist you, either by letting the creep wave pull back towards your tower to put the enemy hero in a more vulnerable position, or even just preparing themselves to stagger their disables and nukes with yours when you arrive behind a pincer. Typically, ganks only fail against enemy heroes with excellent escape mechanisms, or if they're tipped off either through wards, missing calls, or over-aggressive plays from your allies in lane betraying your arrival. This comes down to essentially the sum total of you and your teammates' overall skill alongside synergy and tactics as compared to your enemies. Just keep in mind that the longer you stay out of lane, the more experience and gold you're forfeiting. Do not fall into the trap of laying in wait for minutes on end for the perfect opportunity. If, after collecting the rune, there isn't a viable gank, head back to middle. Even worse is a failed gank, compounding your loss of experience and gold, so don't let your level advantage fill you with overconfidence. So, while there is more to be said about the middle lane, that's it for the basic version, and I hope that you found this video useful for taking your game to the next level. If you want to take this farther, the advanced version will be on my channel Monday. Remember, it's you who decide the topics I'll cover, so be sure to post in the comments below. As always, if you like this video, please thumbs up, share, and subscribe to Dotacinema and my channel to stay up to date. Until next week, this is XV, signing out.